Okay, the hour being 10 o'clock, let's call to order the board meeting of the California Housing Financing Agency. On a roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Avila Farias. Mr. Schaefer.
Tim Schaefer for Treasurer John Chung.
Ms. Gallagher. Dr. Imbasiani.
Present.
Mr. Hunter. Ms. Johnson Hall. Ms. Amon for Mr. Metcalf.
Catherine Amon, representing Director Ben Metcalf.
Mr. Prince.
Here.
Ms. Von Koch-Liebert for Secretary Podesta. Present. Ms. Sotelo.
Here.
Mr. Russell.
Present.
Mr. Gunning.
Here.
Mr. Alex. Ms. Wong Hernandez for Mr. Cohen.
Jacqueline Wong Hernandez for Director of Finance, Michael Cohen.
Ms. Patterson.
Here.
Mr. Gunning, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The minutes from the December 12th, 2017 meeting have been distributed. Is there any objection to the minutes being approved as distributed?
Move for approval?
Do we need to?
There's no objection.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Let's have a vote.
Okay. Ms. Avila Farias. Mr. Schaefer.
Aye.
Ms. Gallagher. Dr. Imbasiani.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter. Ms. Johnson Hall. Ms. Amon.
Aye.
Mr. Prince.
Yes.
Ms. Von Koch-Liebert.
Aye.
Ms. Sotelo.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
And Mr. Gunning.
I think I should abstain. I don't think I made that. Did you still?
And the minutes are approved, yes.
Awesome. Good. You know, I missed the December 17th meeting, so I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Janet, but I'd be remiss if I didn't at least wish her the best in her absentia. Janet is one of the persons that taught me about affordable housing decades ago, so I do want to at least acknowledge her leadership, and she will be missed. And with that, Tia, why don't we turn it over to you for comments?
Okay, so Single Family has made several changes to broaden our scope and our options to make our single-family programs easier. And so at the last board meeting, you remembered that we, Mr. Stu, our acting director of single family, presented the reasoning behind the couple of changes which increased our income and made simplifications to our household size calculations. So in addition to that, we have reduced our interest rate extension fee for our lenders, making it easier for our lenders to utilize our programs. We are rebanding the extra credit teacher program and replacing it with a school teacher and employee assistance program. And this helps to clarify that the assistance is not just available for teachers, but all school district employees of the California schools, continuation schools, and charter schools. So that option will be available to them. It offers a 4% down payment or closing cost assistance. Three new products CalHFA will be offering starting February 1st include our leasehold estates, community land trust, and a limited 203K option on our FHA loans. The limited 203K option is an affordable way for a borrower to finance minor repairs up to $35,000, and it follows all of the FHA guidelines. If you will recall, we've talked about making sure that our single family has a broader suite that we can offer, and so these all go to that broader suite of offerings that we can offer. Regarding the mortgage credit certificate program, there was some worry that the mortgage credit certificates would be eliminated with the federal tax reforms. They weren't. However, when we started reviewing trends, we noticed that I think it was about 40%, Tim can correct me if I'm wrong, but about 40% of our loans were using MCCs to qualify for their mortgage, and so we didn't believe that was a very good public policy. So we was it December 1st? December 1st? November 1st, we stated that you could not use the mortgage credit certificates to qualify for a loan. Yeah, because a lot of those folks were utilizing the mortgage credit certificate but didn't even have a tax liability. So they were just using it to qualify for to have income qualify for a loan. You all may also know that we've been participating in the CalHFA, or workforce planning, succession planning. And our director of admin came on board in August, September, and she has made leaps and bound strides in the time that she has been here. But since she has been here, we have, management and supervisors have updated all of the duty statements, all of every employee. We had some employees who had never had their duty statements reviewed or updated. This has also been included with expectation memos, and a process for implementing a process for performance and evaluations of employees. Employees had been here sometimes 20 years and had never received an evaluation. And so as part of that strategic workforce planning, succession planning, I want to give a shout out to our director of admin, who is just phenomenal in making some of those things happen. We will also be directing for a director of home ownership, a general counsel, and a director of legislation after our longtime director of legislation who retired in December. And with that, that is my report. Oh, the Jan 10 budget. The governor released his January 10 budget, and in that budget, the administration did set out that they would be continuing their efforts to implement programs that had the 2017 legislative package. They provided $3 million in general funds to the Department of HCD to help implement those efforts, along with potential funds that will be coming down with the permanent source fund. Revenue was SB 3? 2. SB 2. And I think that's it.
Awesome. Any comments or questions from the board?
So you mentioned the three new products, community land trusts?
Yes.
I would appreciate sometime in the next year just learning more about that. It's
Yes,
an
and
area
so-
of interest.
Right, and let me give you just the background as to why we're laying this foundation. Community land trusts had often, you see this as an affordable mechanism, but hadn't had access to our affordable product. And now we've been able to align those regulatory agreements, align those guidelines, and allow them to use our product on a community land trust home. And by offering that on leaseholds, we're now setting a foundation too for manufactured housing and other types of affordable housing products, so that we'll be able to align our product with other types of affordable housing strategies. In addition to that, we've been working with the governor's housing task force and the disaster recovery, and making sure that we have all the foundation in place so that we can help on the back end with that recovery effort. Making sure that our product is available to be able to refinance or buy out construction lenders, SBA, or other types of lending that comes in at the front end, to offer them a low interest rate mortgage on the back end. And so all of these changes that we're making now is to be able to lay a foundation so that we'll be able to do some of those things on the back end for the recovery effort as well.
Very good, thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Tia. Moving on to report of the chair of the audit committee. I guess that's mine. At the November 9th audit committee meeting, Clifton Larson Allen, who's our auditor, presented the results of the California Housing Finance Fund. Since there was not a full board meeting on November 9th, the report out to the full board is today, and the following is a recap of the results. First, we discuss the results of the Housing Financing Fund audit and the receipt of an unqualifying or clean opinion from Clifton Larson Allen, and the continued improvement of the fund's financial health. The growth and profitability of the agency's single-family lending program significantly contributed to the fund's operating income before transfers of $150.2 million for the year, an increase of over 94% from the prior year. However, this positive result was offset by Senate Bill 837, which consolidated assets from various loan assistance programs reported in the Housing Finance Fund and transferred them to the Housing Purchase Assistance, or HPA program, which is administered by the agency, but is reported to the state of California's reported in the state of California's financial statements. The net effect of SB 837 transfers was a $190 million reduction in the Housing Finance Fund's net position. Since Senate Bill 837 significantly reduced the agency's net position, the members of the Audit Committee asked for staff to provide a memo detailing the impact of SB 837, which is labeled as item 4A in your board packet. As the memo explains, the decrease in the net position was not the result of financial operations and is in effect simply a change in accounting and reporting of the transferred assets. Next in the meeting, we discussed the single audit of federal programs, which primarily focuses on the project-based Section 8 rental assistance program, but does not include the Section 811 project rental assistance demonstration program and the National Foreclosure Mitigation Counseling Program. For the last few years, we have had findings under this Section 8 program, but this year there was a repeat finding. The specific finding this year was that 1 of 15 projects did not make the required monthly deposit to the replacement reserve account, and 1 of 12 projects did not have the management occupancy review completed within the 12-month period. Each time there are findings, the auditor will recommend a course of action for the agency. This year, they recommended that the Asset Management Division perform a review of the department to assess staffing levels, as well as establish written procedures and policies for all activities of the division. The Executive Office immediately engaged an outside consultant in November of last year to perform a review of the Asset Management Division's workload, organizational structure, and staffing levels. While the independent review is being completed, staff is simultaneously documenting procedures and policies for completion by March 31st of this year. As of today, the consultant has completed the interviews of CalHFA staff and plans to have the report, which will include an analysis and recommendations for the agency, finalized by the March board meeting. Lastly, it was reported by Clifton Larson Allen that the 2 remaining agreed-upon procedure reports for the My Home Assistance Program and the Fannie Mae document custodian did not have any findings. This sort of wraps up my report. Any questions, or any of the members? Delilah, you want to add any comment, or?
No comment.
Okay. Yeah, Steve, go ahead.
So going back to the question of the transfer under SB 837.
Yes.
So it reduces our net position. These are assets we were managing.
Yes.
And are now being managed by another entity. No, we're still managing
still,
it.
yes.
So are we realizing proceeds from the financial activities, management fees, or other revenues from the management of those funds?
Don, you want to?
Yes.
And we will continue to receive those
That's
fees?
correct.
Okay, so as no.
There's admin fees that we
Okay.
correct on those.
So in addition, so aside from affecting our position on the books, it doesn't change our operating income? or
That's
revenues?
correct.
Okay.
It's just being separated for reporting purposes.
Okay, thank you.
And just to remind you all what 837 was we had various down payment assistance programs, and it consolidated all the down payment assistance programs. And so part of these down payment assistance programs were reported in our housing finance fund, and so now they're all consolidated, one set of rules, and they're all reported outside of our housing finance fund. So it's an accounting. But
Okay.
it was a streamlining process to allow us to more effectively utilize those down payment assistance programs.
But so if I'm understanding, we're not carrying the assets, the funds on our books, but we are still administering it and collecting fees from the way we administer it. Okay, thank you.
And then this was the same bill that created the global position? Was this 837?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that all happened in the budget bill, where they took out the director of insurance and gave us a director of enterprise risk, and they streamlined our down payment assistance programs by consolidating them into one program.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding the projects that did not make the replacement into the reserve account, is the consultant also looking at solutions to be able to fully replenish the reserve, or is the consultant solely focusing on internal activities within the asset management department?
My sense is internal activities, but
And
I
so
think it's-
will,
it's
how
strictly
will,
how they'll function.
and how will that,
We'll let Don-
finding be addressed?
Don Kavir. The internal asset management department staff, the chiefs and the loan officers were working on that particular issue that you're talking about to rectify the concern over the reserve. So that's being taken care of internally. It was just more of a matter that the finding happened at all. And so I think that the consultant is looking at just overall operational issues and policies and procedures so that these types of things don't continue to happen. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Moving on to item,
Before you move on, does the light mean the mic is on?
Yes.
Or, okay. Okay, I'm having a hard time hearing it. I'm getting confused, so sorry.
would you like to say something?
No, I just want to be able to hear. I'm half deaf, so one ear hurts.
There it
This
is.
kind of stuff.
Okay, moving on to item 4B, discussion of the agency's comprehensive annual financial report. At this time, I'd like to have Oksana Glushenko present to the board. Thank you, Oksana.
Good morning, Honorable Chairman and members of the board. My name is Oksana Glushenko, and I'm a Deputy Controller for the Fiscal Services Division. I was asked today to discuss this year's audited financial report, and in particular, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or abbreviated CAFR. This is our first year preparing the CAFR, and it was prepared using the guidelines established by the Governmental Finance Officer Association, GFOA. Before we begin our discussion of the CAFR, I would like to give you a brief background on the GFOA CAFR program. The GFOA established the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, the CAFR program, to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles. Preparing the CAFR evidence the spirit of transparency and full disclosure and recognizes individual governments that succeed in achieving that goal. The goal of the program is not to assess the financial health of participating governments, but rather to ensure that users of their financial statements have the information they need to do so themselves. Reports submitted to the CAFR program are reviewed by selected members of the GFOA professional staff and the GFOA Special Review Committee, which is comprised of individuals with expertise in public sector financial reporting and includes financial statement preparers, individual auditors, and other industry professionals. The reports must be submitted within 6 months of the end of the fiscal year. The GFOA review process typically takes an additional 4 to 6 months before they can announce the results. According to the Governmental Finance Officer Association reports that 4,231 organizations received the Certificate of Achievement and Excellence in Financial Reporting in 2016. Today, most governments prepare only the basic financial statement, which is a minimum necessary for fair presentation in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. So let's take a look. What's the CAFR? Each of you has been provided a copy of the CAFR that we prepared this year. Also, the link is available on the CalHFA website, and that's what's been submitted to the GFOA for the award this year. So let's take a look on the table of contents of the CAFR and see what we have done this year. The CAFR consists of 3 different sections: introductory, financial, and statistical. Each has benefits that the basic financial statements do not. I'd like to highlight some of the key benefits to each section. A key benefit to the CAFR is that introductory section includes a letter of transmittal that contains subjective information, unlike the management discussion and analysis. This allows government's management to highlight accomplishment and discuss major initiatives. Management may also include prospective information and discuss long-range planning. According to the GFOA, an effective letter of transmittal should discuss a profile of the government and the economy in which it operates. Other elements of the introductory section includes a table of contents, organizational chart, and list of the officials, such as board members or senior staff. This year, the CAFR letter of transmittal includes the mission of California Housing Finance Agency, relevant financial policies, major initiatives, and economic impact, just to name a few. The second section is a financial section and contains most of what's required for the basic financial statement presentation. Therefore, we did not make any major changes to that section compared to the prior year financial statements that we submitted. We did expand on the notes section, which now includes capital assets and risk management. The final section is a statistical section. This section allows operational, economic, and historical data to be included. This provides a context for assessing a government's economic condition. The statistical section is made up of the following broad categories: information on financial trends, information on the revenue capacity, information on a debt capacity, demographic and economic information, and operating information. Our statistical section now includes more demographic and economic information on the state of California population, personal income, unemployment, and industry employment data. We also added information on the revenue capacity and a debt service capacity for the Housing Finance Fund. We gathered the last 10 fiscal years of information in order to comply with CalHFA reporting guidelines. This change will also provide the agency with more meaningful historical data to forecast future economic trends. So we choose this year a theme for the CAFR is partnering to make a difference. And we choose it because it's important to acknowledge there will be no solution to California housing crisis without many different organizations working together. It will take departments, state departments, private businesses, nonprofit, and state and local governments, all working in a partnership to get California housing where it needs to be. I wanted to point out the preparation of the CAFR allow us to combine the audited financial statements with a statistical supplement into one report, eliminating the need to produce individual documents. Currently, we're working on preparing the popular annual financial report, or the PAFR. This is another award program administered by the Governmental Finance Officers Association. The PAFR program was established to assist state and local governments to produce high-quality, popular annual financial report designed to be readily accessible and easily understandable to the general public and other interested parties without a background in public finance, and then to recognize individual governments that are successful in achieving that goal. The financial information found in PAFR is extracted from the comprehensive annual financial report and presented on a high level in order to simplify complex jargon. We anticipate submitting the popular annual financial report to CalHFA by the end of January 2018. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to recognize all CalHFA staff for their contributions to the comprehensive annual financial report and the popular annual financial report, their hard work and dedication throughout the year, our senior staff for their continued support, and also our Clifton Lawson Allen auditing team for their guidance and for reviewing the CAFR. Thank you so much for your time.
Any questions, comments? Sure, you can make a comment.
Don, who is our chief deputy and works very closely with finance, fiscal services, really put a lot of work into this. And I just want to give a shout out to this. This is something that Don has wanted to do since he first came over to the organization, was to make it more open and readable and transparent. And so I hope he really gets his award for this when they submit their award. But Don and all of fiscal services really did just a huge lift to get this done this year. And so going forward, it'll be a little easier to put it together, but this is the first time in the history of the agency that they actually presented it in this kind of a readable format consistent with GFAO principles. And so I just want to give a shout out to staff for making that happen.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Tia. Thank you, staff, thanks, Don. Okay, that concludes the report of the audit committee. Moving on to agenda item 5, discussion, recommendation, and possible action regarding final loan commitments for a couple of projects. Mr. Carroll, I presume.
Good morning, Mr. Gunning, Chairman, and members of the committee.
We're happy to bring to you two loans today for your consideration. First is South Lake Tower Senior Apartments. It's a refinance of our portfolio loan that we currently have. And the second one is a acquisition rehab where we'd be providing a permanent takeout loan as well as a subsidy loan. And it's a rural project as well. So first up is the South Lake Tower Senior Apartments, and I'd like to introduce Loan Officer Steve Lyerly, who will walk you through the project, and we also have a representative of the borrower here in case we have any questions for them. I'll turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning. My name obviously is Steve Lyerly. I didn't change it since Michael introduced me, but I'm used to saying it. The project I'm bringing for you today is from Oakland. It was a former HUD building. It's been owned by Christian Church Homes, it's a nonprofit. They've owned the property since 1979. It's been in our portfolio since 2002. They came to us with a refinancing to be tied with a renewed HAP contract. They have about 6 years remaining on their existing HAP contract. They've been talking with HUD. They have an agreement to extend it for a 20-year HAP contract. We did the underwriting based on the extended 20-year HAP contract, which meets our guidelines for no TOR or transition operating reserve. The property is valued in the range of $30+ million. We want to make a loan to them in the amount of $24,376,000. This leaves us with a loan to value of 80%, which is fairly conservative, and we've underwritten it to a debt service ratio of 1.15 to 1, which is our standards. There was, we've done, site reconnaissance visits, walked through the property. There was a physical needs analysis that was performed. It identified a certain level of work that needed to be done to certain systems. Primarily those systems was an elevator was out of, it's a traction elevator, and it was out of service, and they're as old as the properties, and they need some rehab, and they need a new roof. And those are really the big major items. The rest of the improvement budget that you see there are things that they would like to do with the property, change the way the entry looks. This property originally provided meals for the residents. That's no longer the case. It has huge commercial kitchen facilities. Those facilities are going to be sold off, and that space is going to be reused for the residents and also for their leasing activities, their management activities, those types of things. They're doing some landscaping upgrades in their patio area and their front yard to kind of fully seal off the property from transients that might come through the neighborhood so that they can't jump the fences and come through. And they've had some problems with some dogs getting into landscaping, so they're doing some things like that. I see pictures are going through. That is the entry to the building. Every unit has a balcony patio. There are certain panels that are stucco basically behind the walls you see. Those are going to be painted. The rest of the building is just concrete, natural raw concrete, unfinished, not being touched at all. This, I think this property is just north of Lake Narrett by probably less than a half mile or something. It's also close to Chinatown. The population there is very diverse. It serves seniors 62 years of age and older. And those were the traction gears for the elevators I mentioned. That was kind of a partial fix on the keeping the animals out of the landscaping in the front that was mentioned. These are a typical bathroom, typical kitchen. This is an existing kitchen. I would say that there's probably 30 to 40% of the kitchens have all been modernized. So your typical kitchens are in excellent condition, to be honest with you, but they have been on move-outs, on seniors. There's a kind of a, unfortunately, natural progression of move-outs that occurs in senior complexes, and when that happens, they take that 30 days that they're basically given. They they have a waiting list, but HUD will pay that voucher for a certain number of days that allows you to rehab the property, and they use that period to just do these simple cabinet upgrades and countertop upgrades. That's essentially really what they've been doing based on move-outs out of their operating budgets. The project has been very well maintained, and it's very well managed, and we recommend approval of this loan. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Steve.
So I have a question about I have a question about the term of affordability. I see we're going from was it 80% down to 50% AMI affordability? We're deepening the affordability. But what is the term of that as well? I mean, I couldn't find, we are extending the term of affordability.
Oh, yeah, we have, okay, so on the refinance program, we have, our conditions is that we get at least 5 years additional affordability, but in no case less than 20. So in this instance, we will get, there'll be at least 20, but it extends to the period of the loan. So the loan is 40 years. So as long as the loan is in place, the affordability from the agency remains in place. There's also affordability restrictions from the city of Oakland at 60% that last, I think we called out the dates on those. But for our loan program, it will remain for the 40-year term of our loan, but not less than 20, if that's clear.
Okay. And another question, I'm assuming based on the profile of the organization that the proceeds are going to go back into other kinds of projects. Is the developer willing to speak to what their plans are for the equity? I mean, that's a pretty significant amount of equity, which if it's recycling back into affordable housing, obviously is important.
Well, I think you'd be pleased with their plans, but sure, yeah. Well, I can ask them if you'd like to hear from them.
Yes, please, if we may.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Tony Wang. Tony, can I ask you to come up?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Board of Directors. My name is Tony Wang with Christian Church Homes. I'm a representative here coming from Oakland today. I can attest to one of the questions is that how we intend to use the equity cash out. So it will go back to the organizations furthering the mission. Our mission is to develop and provide affordable senior housing. So it does go back to furthering our mission.
And I'm getting the details sometimes, but you're selling the commercial kitchen? Is that a
No, the commercial kitchen is going away.
It's going away.
Correct, and making spaces for additional multi-purpose room for residents and expanding the existing usable space so that residents can further use their spaces.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Speak to them about your development. Developing a developing arm.
So we at Christian Church Homes have been developing affordable senior housing since 1961, and affordable senior housing is pretty much all we do at Christian Church Homes. We have a strong pipeline coming up, acquisition rehabs, as well as in our existing portfolio, as well as acquiring other affordable senior housing properties and continuing to serve low-income seniors.
Well, but Tony, there's also intention to develop within their organization a development arm of the organization to support them, but also as to be a base of knowledge and expertise for others within the industry that they could also participate because they do particularly well in what they do. And they can make themselves they're underutilized for their talent in some ways that they have within their organization.
Good. Delilah, hang on a second. Lynn, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, just a follow-up question regarding the decision to move away from the commercial kitchen. What was the process for resident feedback and involvement in that decision? And will there be any current residents that are unable to provide their own food without having access to this communal food?
They weren't being offered meals.
Oh, they weren't? So
No.
the commercial kitchen
No,
was not
it
in
was
use?
just dead space. It had And other than from like community barbecues type, you know, people getting together and use the space for themselves and stuff like that. You're talking about Hobarth mixers and stuff, you know, that you would see in commercial bakeries, the size of the ovens, the size of, you could run a pizza outset. I mean, they were set up to provide full-out meals, which they had not been doing for a long period of time. So it's not upsetting or changing the operations or expectations of the tenants in any way.
Okay, thank you.
They all have their own kitchens within their units.
So what kind of services are being provided to the seniors? There's 130 seniors in the building. So what kind of services do you provide?
Oh, we have a dedicated social service coordinator on site that connects services from the outside vendors to our residents. They help them get in touch with doctors, podiatrists. If they needed like Meals on Wheels program, they connect the services to the residents. As well as on-site property management services, amenities on site.
They also have a van for taking the people around.
Okay. And do you, just understanding the organization a little bit more, do you have a pipeline of projects that you're going to be developing?
Correct.
In the next, how many units are included in that pipeline?
We have at least several projects, probably over, I don't have the exact number count with me, but it's expected to be several hundred units coming up in the next couple years.
Okay, great. So, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of underwriting questions from the report. If I can ask Steve, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So I guess we're asking for a couple of waivers within the document, and I just want to make sure that we're all cognizant of it, and I don't know how they go through the underwriting guidelines or not, but you've asked for a waiver of the Phase 1 report, which I think is reasonable, given that it's an existing building, and we've had it in our portfolio forever, so I think that's appropriate. But I think that the asbestos and the lead is a critical aspect of that, so I want to just make sure that we're looking at asbestos and lead, given the age of the building. The other waivers that you've requested pertain to the elimination of the replacement reserves that are basically at $1.4 million now and being reduced to $130,000 a year. It's a very significant reduction in replacement reserves, and given the scope of work, which is only about $2.9 million, I'm a little concerned about agreeing to reduce the reserves by such a significant number. So I understand that there was a replacement reserve needs analysis, but I would recommend having staff take a look at that again to see if under our underwriting guidelines, we're able to make a more robust capital account for the replacement reserves rather than reducing it so significantly. The other two waivers that you request are the transition operating reserve. Given that the HAP contract is being extended for 20 years, I know that it's onerous to have the transition operating reserve as part of that, but given the volatility of the federal entitlement programs, I'm not sure that is wise to go ahead and eliminate such a significant transition reserve. What is the amount of the transition operating reserve right now?
There is none currently.
So you have a requirement for it, but it's never been funded?
On a refinancing, there is a requirement to take a look at that. But our policies is if the contract is for 20 years or longer, we don't require a TOR, a transitional operating reserve. Sometimes they come into play when there is an investor and there's a tax credit investor. We have no tax credit investor here. There's no tax credits involved. There's no bonds involved. There's nobody else that's requesting one. We feel secure with the loan, and they have been operating under a HAP since 1979 or since they've owned the property. So it's been continuous. They've been invested in by the former redevelopment agency of the city of Oakland, had almost $500,000 in it the city of Oakland themselves has a couple $1 million in this, so all these funds are going to be repaid to the city of Oakland. The need is established. They serve a population there that it's very expensive to try to replace housing in central Oakland.
I guess, you know, the transition operating reserve is established to absorb the difference between the higher HAP contract and the actual ability for the seniors to pay. And, you know, our loan is really the only, you know, loan and lien on the property. And so it is potentially at risk if the HAP contract goes away. And just, again, given the volatility of the federal entitlement programs, I'm a little concerned releasing a $1.4 million replacement reserve down to $130,000 and then having no transition operating reserve. And then also waiving an operating, or I assume you're waiving the operating reserve as well, the operating expense reserve. So I would just ask that while we move forward on the approval of the loan, that we look at the reserve and the health of the reserves. Again, not to create new policy around our underwriting guidelines, but to take a little bit more conscientious look at, you know, reducing the obligations, reducing the exposure. And then the last thing, again, is, you know, just understanding a little bit more, just the math. The $12.5 million equity release doesn't coincide with the numbers. There's an appraisal of $30.4 million, and then our loan is for 24.3. So I'm not sure where the 12.5 comes from. So if you could address that.
Okay, with the appraisal is the value of the property. The 24, the loan amount, 24,376, they'll be paying, you know, about $6 million back to us, close to $2 million back, or $1.5 million back to the city of Oakland.
Okay, so they're just pulling, they're
It's,
not
it's a, it's a,
refinancing any debt.
the equity out is a very soft number. It's as long as all the other numbers hold. As time goes on, you know, the loan balances are being reduced, amortized. So, you know, the
So we could have gone with the lower loan to value, but we've agreed to go to a higher loan to value so that they could pull out cash.
No. Our standard loan to value is 90%. We've reduced this loan to value to 80%. So we've actually taken precautions in that we're requiring a higher loan to value, which reduces the amount that they can borrow against the property. There's been no adjustments to try to increase money out
Okay.
to the borrower.
Okay.
I would like to clarify just a couple of things. The waiver on the phase one, we've done a full phase one.
It's the update, right?
Right. It was done by the borrower.
Understand.
They spent a year evaluating whether they wanted to re-syndicate or syndicate the property when it's never been syndicated.
Steve, we understand. I
Okay,
understand.
I'm sorry. So
Thank
it was just a time frame. The asbestos has been looked at, the lead's been looked at. There's nothing that's,
Could you actually review our underwriting guidelines for a refi when it comes to replacement reserve? And what is our standard for replacement reserve? And also, what is our standard for a transition operating reserve? What are our underwriting guidelines for those?
there's a formula for it, for the operating reserve, but it doesn't come into play when the contract is for 20 years. So it probably shouldn't be called out as a waiver because it's not really a waiver in this case. The replacements reserves are slightly subjective, but really based on the P&A, the physical needs analysis. They have collected the amount of money that they have in the replacement reserves because they have been doing maintenance and repairs out of their operating budget, okay? So they haven't come to the agency and asked for this money to be used. And currently, we're going to request $400 a unit per year for their replacement reserves. Currently, they're paying less than that. So we're going to ask for more on a yearly basis than what they've been paying in the past. And we're looking at the 40-year life cycle of this building and what the systems look like. And that's what that study and analysis gives us, so it's not subjective. So we look at these things of what they've done operational history-wise, and we have an excellent example of that in the condition of the building, the finances of the building, and what we've seen in these inspections and what our inspectors have seen. And then there's an analysis done as what needs to be replaced in the next 20 years or half-life of the loan. And a budget is determined so that all those financial needs can be met. And that budget does not include starting out with $130,000 reserve. We required the $130,000 reserve as part of our policies, where we've just generally said, we don't like there being nothing in there. So we've decided $1,000 a unit, which is equivalent to 2.5 years almost of yearly payments, was kind of a standard amount that we were going to use. But we can certainly revisit that at any time. But there is a certain subjectivity to the way we do our analysis on replacement reserves. But we also do so with very good knowledge and with numbers. And there's an inflator involved in that. There's an inflator involved with the reserves. There was an inflator that was involved in the analysis that's done by the physical needs analysis provider.
I would just add that with this loan, we have the benefit of having had this borrower in our portfolio for all these years, and they've always been an excellent borrower and maintained the property very well. Our construction, our property inspectors regularly go out and are quite happy with the operations and maintenance here.
So if I could summarize for Ms. Sotelo, the analysis that you've taken and the steps that you're taking to get at some of her concerns are that in a refi, our term sheet provides that we can give 90% LTV. For this particular project, we've provided 80% LTV. In this particular project, we have a replacement reserve that has been existing that we are funding now at a higher per unit than we did in the past. In addition, the city of Oakland will be getting repaid fully their subordinate debt, in which they can now recycle their housing proceeds, and we have a small amount of equity being taken out by a developer who will be using it to increase other affordable housing developments. The transition, what has been called out as an operating replacement reserve as a waiver, should not have been identified as an operating replacement waiver, because we have a 20-year contract in which our policies say we don't require an operating replacement reserve when we have a 20-year contract.
I would agree with that, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the nice mitigant is that you are holding back $1 million of the $12.5 million equity distribution to the developer for the replacement, for the scope of work that you're doing on the rehab. So, I commend staff on doing that. But again, I just want to voice my concerns that this is a 20-year HAP contract in a very volatile environment.
Yeah, I totally, so I think we have a great sponsor owner and with a great track record. If they wanted to sell the property, they probably would receive even more equity to themselves, right? Though they would lose the asset. But a 20-year contract still has language that says subject to funding. The proposed budget from the president is 16% cut within the federal budget, right? And within the HUD budget. I totally agree. I think there has to be some level of a sensitivity analysis on the $1.1 million of Section 8 dollars of what happens if that's reduced, and what does that do? Because what we're talking about is, yes, it's a great asset and a very good nonprofit, appears to be so, who's going to then create more housing options. But if they default on $24 million to CalHFA, that's kind of a big hit for us. So I think that's where you're looking at it. And so I think having we put in transitional operating reserves within our project-based developments it kind of just makes sense, even if you've had a track record. So from a personal position and then for CalHFA, I think those things are very valid issues to raise. Still, it looks really great. I'm a little envious of someone getting that kind of equity pulling out, but I look forward to seeing what they're going to do down the road.
So could the board members provide some feedback on transitional operating reserves that they've seen out in the marketplace and how those are being funded? Could you provide a couple of examples?
Well, and I do agree that many times it's required by the tax credit investor. And so I can get you what's happening in Fresno, but it typically is 5 or more years of a certain dollar amount that's sitting there that then gets released after that period of time. I think that that's what we've been agreeing to in Fresno, but I can't remember. But I'll send that to you.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend a 2-year transitional operating reserve, which is the differential between the HAP rent and the 50% AMI level rent for at least our units. And then that be sized by a 2-year period. And then, you know, I think it would be fine to be released if not used within 5 years. So I think that would be completely appropriate.
And I don't think we're suggesting it for this deal, right? We're saying it for future ones, or you want it to be looked
No,
at?
I'm saying I would like for it to be looked at for this transaction. And from a policy perspective, that we discuss it further, you know, if we want to as a board about, you know, making it a policy. Again, we just have to be, we're in an unfortunate position of having to be reactive to a volatile situation. So. And I will defer to staff, you know, and their evaluation of it, you know, to see what it is, but that would be my recommendation.
Well, we make a commitment to the board that we will go back and run those numbers and take a look at that.
Yes, no problem with that. One thing I would like to offer to the board is that and Preston, I'm sure you're aware of this as well, when there is a tax credit investor involved in this, oftentimes this this reserve becomes a part of the assets that gets split, and the developer is forced to give that money, get it back, and that money goes to the investor. And so they're sizing this in expectations of getting that money back themselves, and their role in affordable housing isn't quite the role that our developers and borrowers are doing. So one thing I would like to keep in mind is in developing policies, maybe making differentiation as between when there's an investor involved and not an investor involved, and how we look at that for equitable purposes, that's all.
Yeah, so our transitional reserve comes back 100% to the housing authority. So I don't know what happens with private developers, but I can see that being split with some investors. So I can see that being an issue. But I mean, if I was the nonprofit, I would also have safeguards internally to make sure. So I'm assuming they're doing all of that to protect themselves. But yeah, I think all of that should be kind of looked at and thought about. Protecting the $24 million loan from CalHFA.
All right, any additional questions or comments? All right, we have resolution 18-01 in front of us. Is there a motion? It's moved and seconded. Roll call.
Point of clarification to the chair. The motion is for the resolution as presented, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But I
With
think
a
staff
commitment
is
that
going.
staff will look at it.
Yes.
And I just talked to
And then
Tia
we'll
to make sure she'll
agendize
do that.
the policy discussion in the
Yes.
future. Thank you.
Ms. Avila Farias?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Dr. Imbasciani?
Yes.
Ms. Amon?
Yes.
Mr. Prince?
Yes.
Ms. Von Kleber?
Yes.
Ms. Sotelo?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
And Mr. Gunning?
Aye.
The motion, Resolution 1801 is approved.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Carroll,
you.
one more.
We will report back at the next meeting on the our analysis and negotiations with the borrower around the reserves. So the next loan is the Susanville Garden Apartments, and I'd like to present Loan Officer Ruth Vakili. And I will try and, could we get help in getting the presentation up? Yeah, technical support. And I know that we do have a representative of the developer here as well for questions, but I will turn it over to Ruth to present the staff report.
Good morning. The Susanville Garden Apartments is an acquisition of a rehab of a 64-unit mixed-income family apartment project located in Susanville, which is in Lassen County. It consists of one and two bedroom units in 5 residential buildings. Lassen County is considered rural. The population is about 16,048 people. It's also considered by TCAC to be in a high resource area, which is a prioritization of the development of affordable housing in these areas. The project is located near central downtown Susanville in a more mature residential area consisting primarily of single-family homes. It was built in 1973 and then renovated in 2001. At that time, the project became a tax credit finance project. Currently, the new financing strategy will provide funds to acquire and substantially rehabilitate the project and also add a 1,400 square foot community building. The rehab includes replacement of siding, windows, roofs, site lighting, landscape upgrades, parking lot and sidewalk repairs, and interior work will include upgrading 7 units for ADA accessibility, replacement on an as-needed basis of kitchen countertops, cabinets, appliances, plumbing fixtures, paint, and flooring. The boiler systems will also be replaced, and with the addition of the community building, it will add area for tenant meetings and services, a manager's office, and a computer lab. The interior work will be completed on a daily basis so that the tenant does not have to be relocated temporarily. The rehab is anticipated to be about $38,000 a unit. And the developer, Alliance Property Group, has put together a financing package that includes 4% bonds, tax credits, a $4.3 million construction loan from Hunt Capital, and Hunt will also be the investor in the project. The tax credits are valued at 86 cents on the dollar, and CalHFA will be providing a takeout permanent loan for the project at the end of construction and once the project is 95% leased up. During construction, we're also providing an earned surplus subsidy loan of $1.936 million, and that project, the loan amount, we're requesting a waiver of the maximum of 20,000 unit. We're requesting 36,528,000, which is the request is supported by the fact that there's substantial needs for the project, which are requiring more work to be done initially rather than over time. It's in a rural community, and it's also in a highest resource area as accredited by tax credits. So we feel that there's ample support for increasing the earned surplus subsidy loan on a per unit basis. The project is currently mixed income. 50% of it is affordable to tenants with incomes at 60% or below, and 50% of the project is currently at market rents. With this new transaction, the affordability will be revised to add 21 of the units that are currently market rate to 60% AMI. So once the loans have closed, this project will be affordable to 83% of the project will be restricted to 60% AMI or below, and 16% of the units will then be market rate. Susanville has actually a very strong rental market. There are 5 other affordable housing projects in the area, which are 100% leased up. For market rate projects in the area, they are ranging from 98 to 100% leased up. And this project in particular is currently 97% leased. The rents are set at a level that will be, for affordable units, at 20 to 27% below market rents. And the rents for the market rate units will be offered at about 9 to 11% below current market rents. We're underwriting rents at a level that is slightly higher than the current rent structure. The plan that the developer has put into place is to slowly increase rents. We also have a rent reserve of $50,000 that would assist in the tenants who are unable to sustain rent increases up to the current underwritten level. The rent reserve would be in place in order to slowly raise these rents for those tenants who are already rent burdened. We've established criteria in our regulatory agreement for the earned surplus loan, which would limit the rent burden and rent increases on tenants. We're projecting that the rent reserve would nominally be necessary, and we will hold it for a period of 5 years until rents are able to transition to tax credit and underwritten rents. The borrower is Susanville Gardens Apartment. The developer is Alliance Property Group. Alliance has been a developer of affordable housing for over 20 years. They have 14 projects throughout the U.S., 6 of which are in California, 1 of which is in the CalHFA portfolio. The property manager will be MBS Property Management, and it is the same management company that is operating in Susanville for the affordable housing projects. And the contractor will be Day Builders, a general contractor that specializes in rehab and new construction and multifamily projects. They have also completed successfully and within budget 2 other projects in the CalHFA portfolio. In addition, the architect is Musser Architects, who has also designed 2 other rehab projects in our portfolio. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
No, I just wanted to say, Ruth, you did a really fantastic job on the staff report. It's very
Thank you.
thorough. I really appreciate it, and, you know, it's a lot of great work. I just wanted the board's members to, you know, realize that this 86 cents is a pretty drastic drop, and, you know, we're having to come in and step in and fill that gap. So, you know, as an industry, I think we're having to look at all of this fairly cautiously.
Which also, and thanks for that comment, it also plays into the reason why we felt that the higher gap loan per unit was required. Being that it's rural, it's a smaller project, the pricing is different than you would see in other areas.
Right.
So the pricing on the LOI was probably based upon 25% corporate tax rate. Now the new tax reform is at 21%, so I'm kind of curious about what Hunt is going to do on their tax credit investment. Hopefully they'll honor their LOI, but I just wanted to kind of raise that as an issue. I mean, I bet you all of this underwriting happened before the final tax reform was adopted. And so I imagine there's still going to be a little bit more tweaking. I can see that 86 cents going down even a little bit more as the corporate tax rate was reduced.
I think the advantage that the developer has is that they've done several projects with the same investor, and they've been a very good partner. And throughout the negotiations have been steadfast. So we're hoping that that continues.
Yeah, Hunt is a partnership investor. There's no doubt about that. They value the relationships.
Correct.
And then just lastly, I just really appreciate the analysis that you did on the rent burden component. That was good, and I think that as a policy, that's a very strong policy that we keep these units affordable to individuals. 40% rent burden is high, but the fact that we're mindful of it and have controls within the regulatory agreement is great.
I get lost in the details. one of your pages says there are 5 buildings, and the bird's eye view picture that you started with only showed 4. Where's the 5th building?
That's the planned building that we don't see yet.
Got
That
it.
would be the community building.
On the site?
Yeah, sorry for the mix-up. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which, as you can see on the site plan, thank you.
So I have a question about relocation. What is the reality for, in terms of the actual period of time of renovation, and what are the residents doing during the daytime when they are not allowed in their units?
This is actually, the tenants are all employed. This is workforce housing. And so the plan is to have tenants out of their units because they're working at that time. The plan is to have at least one unit available that if somebody is at home during the day, that they could occupy temporarily and then come back to the unit at night.
Okay, thank you.
So, I move approval.
There's been a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Do you have a question?
No, I was going to second the motion.
All right, motion and a second for the resolutions. Take the roll call.
Ms. Avila Farias?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Dr. Bassiani?
Yes.
Ms. Amon?
Yes.
Mr. Prince?
Yes.
Ms. Von Koch-Liebert?
Yes.
Ms. Sotelo?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
And Mr. Gunning?
Aye.
Resolution 1802 is approved.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Board. Thanks. Moving on to item number 6, discussion regarding the Housing Assistance Payments Contract.
Yes,
Okay, you, Mike?
that's me, thank you.
Okay.
So as you can see from the staff report and the kind of the history we provided, there's about an 18-year-old history of HUD contracting out for the administration of the Housing Assistance Program, formerly known as Section 8. As an agency, CalHFA did not bid on that work in 2000 when it first became available for bidding.
I'm going to recuse myself since I might be a potential bidder on this, so I don't want to
Are you gonna leave?
compromise. No, I'll step out and then come back in. I just want to let you all know. Sorry.
So at that time in 2000, the contracts were awarded to the Oakland and Los Angeles housing authorities and their subsidiaries of those organizations. There are about 600 properties in the north part of the state and 733 or so in the south. After that initial round of bidding and running the program that way, there was an opportunity to bid again in 2011 and 2012. CalHFA did bid at those two junctures, and the second time was successful in the award of the bid. I think the first time we missed it by a couple of tenths of a point, actually. However, even though we were awarded we were the successful bidder, a lawsuit prevented the contract from actually being signed. So since that time, the program has been operated with the existing contractors. In the interim, our agency has been meeting with and consulting with a consortium of housing authorities that's based in the West. We do not have a commitment to bid with them. Their intention is to cover as much of the western region as possible with their consortium. So at this stage, HUD has issued a draft solicitation and invited comments on the same. Unlike past solicitations, there is no requirement on the part of HUD that a public housing authority or a housing finance agency be a part of the contracting entity. So that's a significant issue for us, and it would hamper our ability to bid on the process. I should say that when we were successful in bidding in 2012, our plan at that time was to employ a subcontractor to do most of the on-the-ground work, and CalHFA's role was primarily to oversee those contracts. We do have that same contractor is willing to bid with us if we choose to do that, but given that HUD is not requiring a PHA involvement, it's our current thinking that we would not bid if that solicitation stays in that current form. HUD will be is accepting comments on the draft solicitation through the end of January, and we plan to work with the consortium on commenting on those guidelines. We would, of course, prefer that there be a public housing authority requirement, just to help a public entity manage that vital federal resource. But if there is none, we'd be at a competitive disadvantage in bidding. And so that's kind of the current state of affairs, and we just want to report that to you. Open a discussion if you'd like to comment on or provide feedback on our current approach to this situation.
Any questions, comments? None? Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Item number 7, I guess a number of reports, some from Mr. Carroll, but I think they're all self-explanatory unless someone wants to hear about them. Good. Are there any other board matters to be discussed?
I should have thanked the marketing team too for the CalHFA report, because they were very instrumental working with Fiscal and Don and making sure they put that together. So I want to give a shout out to the marketing department.
Shout out given. Is there any, yes, Melissa, go ahead.
About the next board meeting, we had on the schedule as February as tentative. Unfortunately for you, or maybe fortunately, we will be needing a board meeting in February. So it will be on February 15th, it's a Thursday, and it'll be in this location.
You'll send out
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Valentine's Day. Is there any public comment? Anyone from the public want to comment? Okay, any other matters before the board? All right, we stand adjourned.